Yes, that's us. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Live and direct. How are you?
I'm good. I was a little bit tired after work, but had a mate and a coffee, and now I'm here.
Oh, fired now. Okay, cool.
Good, thanks.
And Mike, how are you doing?
I'm also a little bit tired after work, and I didn't have mate, but I'm also... No, all good. All good.
You're with Uli again this week, right?
Yeah.
With Vril. How's that going?
Pretty good so far. We are quite productive and trying to transform our album into a live show now.
Oh, that's what you're doing. Because I was wondering, because you just released the album you did. Is it
Yeah,
not,
it's not
already
released yet.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I listened to it, so I got it anyways. When is it planned for release then?
20th of October.
Oh, that's pretty soon.
So it's
Okay.
like, yeah.
I would say everybody have their eyes out for that, because it's an amazing trip. It's a really, really nice album. Really nice sound design and yeah, I really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, I was wondering how it translates on your system.
Good.
Because I have the same sound system here, but you have more sub, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds very warm, and I mean, yeah, all the stuff you do sounds good, you know. So it's just a matter of I guess the tiny details that would make, you know, that would sound different on a different system, but it translates really well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Curious now.
Well, wink, Mike.
I can send it later to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it.
And now the plan is to take that to the stage then.
Yeah, I mean, we start in a small format now, doing like a small jam, you know, and maybe on some point when we have bigger parties, maybe we can also play it on bigger stages. So we're also working with a visual artist, Michael Tietze, who's doing videos at the moment, which is like the starting point also for visuals later.
Cool.
So
Synced video and sound?
Yeah, we try to. I mean, we just trying to find out how to really perform the music. And if we know how to do this, I think we're gonna have also synced like visuals, and we need to find out how to connect with each other.
So how does it? What's your idea? What's the idea behind? Are you trying to fully recreate the stuff on the album and then have live variations of it, or are you just setting up a bunch of gear which sort of has the same range and span in terms of sound, and did you do something completely different? What's the idea?
No, for now, actually, now for the beginning, we start like to do like a version maybe of the original. So we just exported all the stems from the album and some of the MIDI parts also. So we will have like the main synths, which is easy to recreate because we have the sounds, for example, on the P, we use it a lot. So I have all the presets saved, and we can use these sounds, and all the sounds we are not able to recreate. We use like the samples or loops, you know, and then we jam this out live.
Cool. So is there any flexibility in terms of arrangement? Do you?
Yeah. The arrangement is like, it's not fixed. I mean, we have a track list now, but because we also have like some like drastic like tempo changes, because one half of the album is like 115, and then we go up to 150, 60, 70 in the end. So because it's like half step, and I mean one of the tracks was like 300 BPM when we produced it.
Yeah.
Wait.
Normal, standard.
Yeah, it was more like a joke. I mean, and in the end, it's like 150 or you.
Yeah, or 600.
Yeah.
Which machine is able to do 600?
Yeah, even
Ableton is able to go up to 1,000.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we all also had problems. For example, with the analog rhythm, it stops at 250, 60 something.
Yeah.
So
This is what the
you
people
get-
say in the forum, the speed core
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, you get like really nice, weird glitches and noises then when you reach these tempos.
Nice. So
I
you're
wish-
basically just preparing stuff and see how it all
Yeah,
fits together and how you can
Yeah.
do a version with enough flexibility to improvise, but still have a
Yeah.
backbone you can rely on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So we just started, and I think that's something we need some time also. I mean, for this first thing, we do it without video just to find out how to play together, because we actually never really played live together.
Yeah.
And then we just move on. I think we're gonna have some time.
Yeah. If
Nice.
it starts to be boring, you can always add a piece of gear and jam on top of it. I wish I was that organized and could I wish I had like mastered stems or something I can just build on and But
Yeah.
I'm always creating something new, and it's pretty stressful, but it makes also fun. I'm not that organized as you are.
But when you play live, you have the Octatrack, or
Yes, I do.
okay.
It's basically the center of the set. Since I have it, before it was the rhythm, but since I have the Octatrack, is basically everything built around that. Like there are the sequences and patterns where there's some space to improvise still. Then the modular, which has like a crazy part and a controlled part. And if I need some drums for extra something, I just have the rhythm and my drum kits kind of prepared.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
nice.
then you can have like this, for example, drum loops and stuff from the Octatrack, or do you have this?
I use the rhythm, but I can have like pads and stuff. I have it as a backing track, kind of, or like some sounds which just give me a little bit of orientation where I am and like how much time is already has fly away already.
I should jump in quickly and do some household stuff. Like we changed the system a little bit. Everybody knows that Sander is always with me here in the studio. He's actually back there. Wave, Sander. Yeah,
There he is.
and he's always instructing people how StreamYard works. That's the platform we use here. And every week I find myself kind of confused by talking to the guests and hang out and chat about whatever we talk about, and then at the same time keeping an eye on the comments. So now this new feature, a new variation is that Sander just brings in comments sometimes, and I can just participate. Hello. So
Hey.
this is on
Hello.
people from the Discord server and our regular viewers are showing up. So that's very nice. Jendrik, nice.
Good
Jendrik
evening,
is,
everybody. Hello.
Yeah, so everybody who is watching this on YouTube or Twitch, as usual, you can post your questions in the comments, and then in this case, Sander today can bring them up into the conversation, and we can talk about it. So Twitch is something we started to use as one of the broadcast platforms since last week. So I think there's a whole potential audience out there that we want to see if we can reach them. The more people, the merrier, I guess. So if you are on Twitch, have a look, and we'll maybe see you there.
I never used that Twitch.
Well, it's primarily popular in the gaming world. It's like watching over the shoulder of some person playing games and then interact with. It's sort of half tutorial, half just being with somebody who's playing your favorite game. So it's like there's a education element and a social element. There's have a look there. It's fun. It's fun. It's
Yeah, it's a
good.
cool platform.
Yeah. Do you have experience on Twitch, John?
I have used it in a very limited capacity. Yo, Marcus.
Marcus.
Yeah, I was a part of the live stream. Live, actually, for the first time with Colleen, Lady Starlight, for a broadcast for some Minneapolis promoter friends of mine that were putting together a nice event on Twitch, and so yeah, that was our interaction with it.
How was your first time playing live?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I produce mostly in the box, so to speak, but I mean, certainly it's interesting because there's certainly a physical element to what I do. A lot of the way I produce is I'll have the idea and I'm able to just kind of conjure that as I want to out of what I have in the box. But certainly with kind of my background dancing, playing live, the physical element of it is really satisfying to be able to just change something with with one touch, and then the pattern is reacting instantaneously. So yeah, it was a blast. But I was just using like like just rolling like 707, and then
oh wow, 707. Nice.
Yeah. So Machine Alive and this, so just like simple drum machine stuff, and just programmed patterns beforehand. Some of them on the rolling side of things, and then I had some pads and loops and chords, some of which I played live, like piano style on the pads. But yeah, it was, for me, I had to keep it really simple because I wanted to be able to kind of improvise a little bit and have some things that I can build for myself within that to just jam with.
It's cool if you do it together. You have somebody who's always working, so you have like a little bit of like space to improvise. I like that.
Yeah.
The more people, the better. If it's not somebody who's like jumping in on your machine and pressing it up on your thing.
Yeah, DJing, and then on the mixer, I definitely know what I'm doing there, so I can jump in and affect things or mix as well. So it was nice to collaborate and then be able to kind of jump in and out, but also have room to just have my own stuff that I'm doing, and also interact and pass the control over to someone else, and then kind of be like the backing track, the backing elements, and then.
Did you kind of divide roles in advance, or was it just a matter of just listening carefully to whatever is happening and then just react to things that are going? I had a bunch of things that I just programmed in the drum machine beforehand, and then I had an idea of what could work when, but it wasn't like we practiced and said, okay, this is going to be the beginning, middle, and the end, something like that. It was more, I had different grooves programmed that I felt could work in different ways, and then I would just throw to them in the right point when I felt it would complement what was happening, and go to the next thing. And same with the other stuff. I had a bunch of different kind of, you could say, I guess, elements that could be tracks that I could interact with as I needed to, and just pull up one element of one and then just complement whatever she was doing. So it wasn't like there was a hard and fast plan of sticking to that, but I had kind of a general knowledge of what would work well for a certain mood, and then be able to go to that and dial it in and pull up an element or two and then interact with it live. So yeah, that was that. But yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I noticed that with some collaborations I've done, that if you play together more than once, sometimes roles automatically kind of develop. I've had this thing with Tony, with Surgeon, called Multiples, and
yes,
I guess it's both in the nature of the equipment we used, as well as in the way musically we play together.
Who has the better skill, does more this sort of thing, and like who likes to do melodies or who likes to do drums. Then
it was sort of like that, but also very much what can the gear do? How fast are you reacting or flowing with a certain instrument? I mean, and we used to joke a little bit like. the roles we eventually defined was that he was the lead singer and the guitarist, and I was the drummer and the bass player, you know. But I mean, if we would have had we're going to do a thing again very, very soon, like a seated concert, hardware improvisation, which will, at least from my side, have a different approach, a different setup, more sort of hardware based and without anything prepared or programmed. And just do all the programming on the fly, and that's basically the way Tony always works. You know, he's brings his gear, and it has a certain patch that he can modify, but usually it is sort of ready to go, and then it's just a matter of reacting to whatever is going on and improvising on the spot, which is it's dangerous, but it's a lot of fun, and it keeps you on your toes. So the next show we're going to do it. I think the roles are probably less important, and it's more a matter of feeling each other out and see what happens, you know.
Is it going to be an actual concert or a streaming?
No, it's an actual concert. Yes, yeah, but it's a seated concert. It's the 23rd of October. It's the day before we do the ADE Stoor thing in Tilburg in 013, big venue in the south. So anyway, it's a massive venue. They can hold very few people, so it's like a chamber music setting, you know. So it's people sitting down, and I think that doing it like this is probably more appropriate for that setting. You know, just have a sort of, you know, more improvisation kind of approach rather than
active listening instead of dancing.
Yeah. So is your Octatrack is the heart of your system, and then that obviously has some stuff pre-programmed, or at least some samples ready to go.
I use it less as a sampler, more as a sequencer, because I just love this.
You use the MIDI part of it. Okay.
You know, I sequence the modular system with it. I have like 3 voices in the modular system, so they can really go. I can basically just play synthesizer music for a long time without drums even, but if it has to be like for a dance purpose or the dance floor, then I can just add some drums and go a little bit maybe faster and repetitive maybe. I don't really use it as a sampler, just for emergency cases. I have like some tracks on it and background sounds basically, but sometimes I also have them in the modular system. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have pre-programmed sequences, or do you just tap them in on the fly?
I do have some pre-programmed, and I also have the possibility to just interact, like add some notes and turn maybe the LFOs off or take the trick conditions off, so it's completely changing. I like to play with it. I prepare something just for my own feeling of being safe. But I definitely can also improvise with it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. Yeah, I mean, the Octatrack is it's insanely flexible, and it's funny. And every now and then the Octatrack comes up in these chats, and it's funny to see everybody uses it in a totally different way. Nobody ever uses it the same. It's funny.
I never used the looper in it, but I think it could be a great thing to learn. I mean, I think it's not so difficult, but I think I should use it for instead of using backing tracks for background sounds. I could just like resample some wavetables through reverb or something, just with some VCAs, and then
in real time. You mean use it as a real-time looper? Yeah.
And then just play with the internal effects and LFOs modulations and stuff, and then just bounce out my sequences and stuff. Could be a good way to use it. Would make my live set more live.
Yeah.
If I had something like a little polysynth, or like this little how it's called, Haken Mini Continuum. I think.
Oh yeah.
I want to get that just for playing live. It's so small, light, and has big sounds in it.
Oh, it has internal sounds. I didn't see that version yet. I just know the big controller. You know, that one doesn't have sounds, right? It's just a controller.
No, it has sounds. It has even software where you can kind of modular way do your own, basically DSP based sounds.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people using it in conjunction with the Kima system. That's how it got on my radar never got around. It's not really the type of interface that I was looking for, but I know a lot of people who use Kima use that as a controller.
Yeah.
I didn't know that internal sounds. I'll have another.
They sound good.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's already some tips for playing live here, Mike.
Ask me for tips.
As you were trying to get your live show together, there's
actually, I mean, the thing what I realized, I mean, also last week I played also my other album, which just came out this year. I played this also live with a really small.
Is there something with your mic, or is it my headphones?
No, you're a bit low on volume, Mike. Maybe you should look.
Okay, maybe I should forward a bit. So actually, I had a small setup also with a computer and 2 synthesizers, some electron stuff, and I found out that I had too much stuff. So I also, for the techno stuff, I think I need to reduce myself much more, and I think that's maybe the first thing or the first advice. I think Tony also had this advice in one of the other not Twiddler shows, that you are like dumb when you are like 50% dumber when you play live, when you're in this situation, you know. You're like,
everything you prepare, doesn't usually, only a few things actually make sense. But when you're put on the spot there, everything changes, everything's different, and you have to kind of do your emergency tricks, you know. Yeah, true. That's true.
So I try to keep it as simple as possible now. So,
well, it makes sense, because in the end, you're building a system which is effectively an instrument, as much as any other instrument. It makes sense to be fluent on it, and to be able. You have to be able to really play with it, and you have to kind of know the inside out. You have to kind of know what you can expect, where the limitations are, and if your brain is free from, just trying to keep things going
and listen, trying to listen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, listening is always very important, but that's the main thing, actually. Especially if you're collaborating, then I would say the listening is even more important than the playing, than the doing.
Yeah.
If something sounds right, don't do anything. Keep your hands off. Just let it go. Just let it develop. Just let it. I mean, 4 hands on, or even 6, if you, depending on how many people are in your group. They can change so much in an instant. It's better just to have one person manipulating something, and the other ones kind of follow.
I think it's also a bit easier. It's a bit easier also with the improvisation. You're more than
Tony.
one person.
Hey, Tony.
Hi, Tony. If you are more than one person, so you are more like really like a band. So one plays like one instrument, the other one plays the drums or something like this. I think you can focus much more on stuff like this. But if you are one person controlling like 2 synthesizers, the computer and a mixer.
Yes, I'm enjoying this.
So it's quite a lot of things are happening in a really short amount of time, And I mean, it's also a little bit different than DJing, Also, when you play 4 tracks on a DJ mixer, you don't have to think about the next pattern or which one you mute, or let's say to get in this stage for doing this with the live. I'm doing it with, I think, to play like 100 live or something, just to get like really cool and to you know what I mean?
Glitching around.
Just be free, enjoy it, like really just enjoying and not thinking so much about what are you doing next,
Exactly. So therefore, the range of what you can do, it's not a problem if it's a limited range, and DJ experience does really come in handy when you play live too. Like John already explained, you know, if you have a DJ mixer, I see a lot of people using DJ mixers who are playing live because it's an environment you're used to. You know what the limits are. You know where it's a few big gestures you can do with it, but it's limited. You know,
and even with a proper desk, you know, you can it still has faders and knobs and effect sends, and there you go.
Yeah, but it's not a problem if I would rather play with something which is really limited but very potent than something which is very complicated and can fall apart at any time, you know.
I think the more simple, the more fun it can be because you have more. It's fewer channels to let out all of your creative energy, so it's very direct.
And it's also easier to follow for the listener because you have these sounds you maybe heard before, and then you hear when somebody actually is doing a change, and not if you just add and add and add, and then
and it's a more visceral experience for the listener too, because it's just the more sweeping changes made by one human to be heard by another one.
When you play with more than two people, which I've done a couple of times in the recent past, it's kind of becoming like playing an improvised jazz set, you know, like having like four or five people sitting around, and two of them they start, and then the other ones are just nodding for like the first half hour with a drink in their hand, and then they join in at some point when they feel they're ready, and then sort of they take over. And the only thing is basically you have a tempo and you have sort of like a certain energy level, and that's all there is to work with, So when you join in, you can choose to sort of slide in and then change the direction a little bit, or or just do nothing and just let it happen. And then you get this rotation going on with people taking the lead, people backing off, and it's a really nice process. It's really cool.
So we should come over to you to Rotterdam.
Anytime. I wish that was easy as just saying it. But if anybody of you, if you can make it here, sure, let's do something.
Sounds fantastic.
You've been here before, Mike, so you know. It's
I know how it works.
It's been.
Are they good toys?
Sorry, what you say, Jako?
I was asking if you have the good toys to play with.
Lots of toys in your house.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of toys. Yeah.
I think he's got at least more than 3 synthesizers. There's maybe.
It's been cluttering up inside the room. I thought when I moved here, finally I've got space, room to breathe. And within a few months, it was everything was stacked to the ceiling again. That's how
doesn't look like from here. It looks okay.
Well, it's you can still move around for sure. But anyway, so anytime, always welcome, of course.
Thank you. So John, you were a dancer before, you said.
Yes.
I just see you always on the dance floor, like you're dancing like a tectonic star, but I didn't know you were a dancer before.
Well, by dancer, I definitely have always been dancing, and since I was, I first realized I like doing this when I was, a teenager, 14, 15, and started going out and hearing house music on the radio in Chicago, and then it was played even at like school dances and things like that. So I got into it there and started going to clubs around that time too. And I've done some other just dancing, a lot of it just out, and then some for some like videos or things like this. But after a while, people wanted to learn from me, so I taught house dance classes for a little while in Berlin.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah.
What is house dance?
Well,
show us. No, I'm kidding.
All right, no, but it's what is house dance? I mean, there's certain people would always have their own answer. It depends on who you ask to a degree, but there's certainly a lot of those that are of the house dance school that would point to New York in kind of the early 90s when it kind of became defined as a dance style. I mean, of course, there are people dancing to house music in Chicago in the 80s, and there's a whole Detroit dance culture and like jit and all these other styles of dances that were club dances. The style that became kind of what a lot of people refer to as house dance today evolved out of a lot of different kinds of dance styles melding together in New York City, and from the 80s and the 90s. But before that, and then by the mid 90s, it was more a developed vocabulary. But I mean, it includes a lot of like tap dance steps and salsa and jazz and kind of modern dance and floor work, and of course breakdancing was developing, and there was the parties at the Loft in Mancuso, and people where the songs would play beginning to end, and people would just dance the whole song, and then it would stop, no mixing, and then play the next one. And it was all about the dancing. And with a wooden floor, like a hi-fi system and a wooden floor, and plenty of room to move all night, And this is an element that I actually. There was always kind of an element of that, a focal point of that in clubbing when I was going out, where the center of the party was the dance circle in the middle of the club. People would look at the DJ and care about what was happening, and were there for the music, of course, as well. But the energy focus was this circle that would just be there like all night, and it wasn't official, it wasn't defined, there was no regulation. It was just a community of people that know that this is a space to dance, and you can go in. And there's different styles of that from.
It's fun to dance together, like finding someone and then just dancing with that person.
And this was also something where people were doing dance as a performative thing. I mean, of course, like the hip hop school things would be more of a battle and people squaring off and trying to compete. But the house side of things was much more about kind of putting moves on display to share with people and kind of elevate the spirit of the whole party and show what you got, basically. And I think this is really a fantastic culture. Sometimes I miss this. I try to get this started. Sometimes when I'm out, from around other dancers and I'm at a club, I'll see if I can get something going, and I have on occasion. But people sometimes don't have the same vocabulary of kind of the ritual of that these days here and there. DJ Q, have you ever DJ Q, or does that ring a bell? Yeah. He and I talk about this stuff all the time because I mean I don't know. So this is kind of a known thing, so it's not like I'm revealing anything new here, but he was a dancer, was touring the world, going to Japan to perform as a dancer, back in the day. And him and Joey Anderson, who's a DJ and producer, I also a lot of respect for. So these guys were dancers, and you also really hear that in their music. But there's kind of a separation of communities between the house dancer community and the club or music driven community. And Q and I will talk about this sometimes when we're hanging out back in the days early before 2020 when we'd see each other out and about more in the world. But at any rate, yeah, so this is an interesting phenomenon. But,
so you make music standing, not sitting?
Do I make it? Well, if the track's good, I start standing, I start dancing. At any rate, and if you want to learn more, and I see a question, I'm going to answer that in a second.
Yeah, Peter T. Hello, Peter T.
Hello, Peter.
Question
what's my favorite Chicago club?
Continue your story until you.
Yeah. I'm going to finish this one thing and come back to your question, Peter. But I was going to just give this shout out moment to wrap this up. If you want to learn more about house dance and the history, there's a fantastic documentary that came out that was kind of like self-made, DIY produced. It's called Check Your Body at the Door. I believe you can get it still on like iTunes, like the kind of film section of iTunes, the iTunes store or whatever you would call it. So yeah, have a look at that, and it's kind of an interesting documentary firsthand of the people that were a part of that house dance movement in New York. Anyway,
I have a question relating to dance before you jump into Peter T's question. You said these guys are dancers and they are producers, and you can hear that. How can you hear? Because in fact, we're all making music, and some of it is functional to dance to. How do you hear when somebody is a dancer and makes music? How does it set the music they do apart from people who are not dancers?
Well, in the case of like if I'm using Q and Joey Anderson's music as an example, you hear little very human elements that lend themselves quite naturally to movement. So like there'll be a shaker that comes in and it's just a little out of place, and it kind of staggers off to the one side of the headphones or something, and just this little like it's the kind of thing where you catch your body reacting to that. If you're a dancer, you'd feel that and be like, ooh, that's something I can work with here, you know. So I hear that kind of stuff in their music all the time, and there's a certain groove, the way the percussion layers, where it has a human physical element to it, where some things can sound very kind of mechanical. Of course, electronic music sounds beautiful in its machine-driven perfection and simplicity also, and that's a one way to go about it that also is spectacular when done. But as far as hearing what a dancer does, I think there's just a certain groove, number one, and then the second thing is just the layering of or introduction of elements, some of which might have either a surprising appearance and disappearance, or just a certain frequency range that speaks to a level of your body. If you're talking about the shoulders or the legs or hips or head or something.
Sure, it does.
Yeah. Where I don't know, some of it you just feel it. Like if you feel it, you know it, and but I think
sometimes music is really well produced and really like sharp on its point and everything's on its place, but it's just not. It's just too smart to dance.
Yeah. I think there's a certain raw human element to the music from the dancer perspective that has just even imperfections to it that you hear and feel that lends itself well to movement.
Cool. I mean,
sorry, go
ahead. So
I was always in Chicago.
Good question. Yeah. No, I didn't want to leave this question hanging. So
sorry.
So Peter, I should clarify too that when I was getting into this music in the Chicago area, I was a teenager, and I was going out to clubs that were like 15, 16, like 16 ages and up clubs like that, where they'd have DJs from the city that would come out and play there, and things like this. Because in the United States, the drinking age is 21, and most of the bigger clubs you couldn't get into until you were 21. And then there were also raves that were happening on these different kind of warehouse parties and stuff like that. But I was going out to wherever I could get in before I was 21. So I mean, there were some bigger clubs. I will give a shout out to a club that I know really made a huge imprint on Chicago, that I would have loved to have, this is before the internet, I also have to say. So, it's harder to find some of these things. You have to really know people that can tell you that. You can't just like Google, oh, where's this club or what's going on.
How to get into Berghain.
For example. So yeah, but there was a club that I would say that really had a lot of impact on people. That's Medusa's. That was kind of a place that was more like multi-ages, and it had different sounds under one roof, and combined a lot of people together that came from different walks of life, different musical backgrounds. So there was like, kind of like punk shows, and then house night after that, or some industrial concert and house music later. And so we had all these different people mixing that really created a creative melting pot. So there's that. I'd say my favorite club, from where I've been, also Smart Bar was always kind of a fantastic community driven little club that had a nice little sound system, and there was a lot of understanding about dancers there would come to dance, and that was an understood part of the kind of the vocabulary of the nights there. So yeah, I'd say Smart Bar, of the clubs I would go to in Chicago, I'd say Smart Bar is probably my favorite one, but I have to give a shout out to Medusa's, because it's influenced a lot of people that also were people that I listened to on the radio and was interested in when I was coming into this. Before I moved to Minneapolis and started going out a lot more there. That's another whole conversation. Anyway, any of you guys in the so yeah, Mike, JakoJako, like, were there some clubs that you went to or kind of heard about that piqued your interest when you were first getting into this? That was kind of
Shall we really speak about this?
Sure, whatever you want to. Yeah.
Mike?
I mean, I started like going out in the really early 2000s in Berlin, so it was like Tresor at that time. Tresor, also Osgood, and
are we back? Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
I lost you. Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
And Casino. I don't know if you know the Casino in Berlin, which it was in Prenzlauer Berg, near to Schönhauser Allee, near to Soho House. You know the Soho House?
Mm-hmm. Was there?
I don't know Casino.
Was there?
I think I'm too young for this.
Was there a club by Mike? I don't know if you remember this. I can't remember the name of it. Was there ever a club near Volksbühne that you remember?
Der Rote Salon? Roter Salon?
Yeah, maybe that was it. But I don't know.
I think it's still there. It's part of the Volksbühne, I think, der Rote Salon. I'm not sure. There's
okay. No, I think that might have been it. Yeah. When I first came to Berlin in 2003, I went to Tresor, the original one, and I think it was this one that must have been the Rote Salon. It was just really random. I was just like, oh, cool. What's this? And this was 2003, so it was, I guess it was after Osgood had closed and before Berghain had opened, and it was kind of the Restrealität in between times when I just came in on a train. I was like, I want to go to some clubs in Berlin, and what can I find? and that's where I ended up. I was also going to maybe go to one of the cookies nights actually too, but ended up not. But yeah, anyway. And Jako, what about you? Do you have any experiences?
I mean, that's the girl of Schneider's Laden. We have 2 girls. No, we actually have 3 girls.
Boom.
I mean, I'm coming from a village in the west part of Germany, so I went to a lot of dirty little clubs. But we danced there, and we had a lot of fun. And when I came to Berlin, like 6 years ago, sure, I did all the classics. I lived directly next to Tresor, so before every party, I made super fast friends at the door because I couldn't understand how to pay $20 for a night and then making a queue for 2 hours. So I just thought I can just pass that and said like, hey guys, I'm living next door and I would like to come a little bit more often. And they said like, who's that little cheeky girl? And I was like starting a little discussion because I said, like, I mean, come on, I'm coming more often than just now. And then
I live right there. Come on.
Yeah, and after 5 minutes, a girl from the back came and said, like, here, let the girl in. Gave me a stamp, and from there on, I was basically often there. Made then a lot of friends at the bar. Lapshi, one of the best there. So yeah, I was a lot of times in Tresor before I went to some parties, and when I came back, I passed Tresor, and then sure. In Berlin,
what point did you start making music then? So you were a clubber, and then
I was a clubber, and I basically
you decided to get into what triggered the interest there.
I mean, I think if you listen to a lot of electronic music, after a while you start to ask yourself like, where do these sounds come from? Like
not everybody does. Not all.
I mean, I was curious a little bit. I couldn't understand it. So yeah, I started to read a little bit about. Then ended up in Equip board. So I figured out which sort of synthesizers producers are using. I liked, and from there on, you fast end up in forums. And then I started to read the Synth magazine and bought this book of Florian Anwander, synthesizers. I had a lot of time because when I moved to Berlin, I basically just came here because there was like something to study. The government paid me for because I was a nurse before, and then they gave me 6,000 euro to study something, and I just had 2 years to use that. So I just thought learn nursing management. So I did that, did a few night shifts per month, and the rest of the time I had time to party and learn the music stuff. And yeah.
Hey, drum cell showing up.
Hello. Drums. ASMR.
Yeah, this way I got into this. And then I basically never DJ'd before. I just learned that recently. I just bought like synthesizers and started to do some sounds. That's basically it.
So you dove straight into making your own sounds right away before you ever got into DJing.
Yeah, it wasn't really to make my own sounds. It was more about like I wanted to understand how that works. And then I figured out, okay, it's not that difficult to make a track. And then I had to learn how to record all this stuff.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through the stuff you have there behind you? Because you're mainly doing stuff with Modular, right?
Yes, or maybe I just keep that as it is. Yeah, it's not that crazy, my setup. I'm pretty minimal because that's my lifestyle. I like to
less is more.
Yes, and it's easier to focus. So you want to explain me the modular system, or
not necessarily everything, but just your process, the way you record in the studio, that stuff.
So Ableton is my master clock. Goes into the rhythm, into the Octatrack, into the modular system, into the sound card. That's it, basically. I have.
So you use the modular for generating. You said before you have 3 voices, and the other stuff, is that just manipulation, or do you use effects as well to?
I basically have everything in the modular.
To process the rhythm and stuff. You run it through. You run the audio through the modular as well.
Not really. I process just the voices in the modular. The drums stay as they are. I have some pedals, so I have like a bit crush. I can get the highs in. I have like some distortions and some fuzz things for the mids, and I have the God Eater of Animal Factory for the kick. Yeah. And in the modular, as I said before, I have like a analog voice, digital, and some granular stuff. Depending on how I patch it, I have something really texturized or something really like fine, plucky, and rhythmical.
It looks like a very focused.
When you say you have 3 voices, is it like 3 oscillators, or is it
3 oscillators?
Yeah.
3 oscillators and VCAs, envelopes, filters, everything. Okay.
So you have in the only end, 1 oscillator running at a time for one sound. Or do you also stack the oscillators with each other?
Sometimes I stack them, and sometimes they're running to the same time, but with different sequences. So it's really like sounds like one complex. Patch basically, like one. I can make whole tracks just in the modular. It's just I have to do all the time something. And then I have like a bunch of modulation. What is basically the key of the modular sound, and then some effects. Yeah, so my new favorite effects, the Happy Nerding FX8. I have 2 of those.
FX8.
This FV1 chip, I think, based. It's like basically an old chip, but it just sounds really good on really small space stereo.
Nice.
And you have a mixer in the modular, or where do you mix it?
Yeah, I do have a mixer. I have a VCA, which also can be a mixer, and a regular mixer, just like 5 stereo ins.
And the rest? The rest is going also, like, do you have an extra mixer then to mix everything together?
At home, I just goes into the sound card, and if I'm preparing for a live, or if I'm playing a live show, I have like just a old school Mackie classic.
So when you record, how much relies on having stuff modulating, using modulation sources, and how much does it rely on you performing?
I mean, I think it's 50-50, because the patch idea is already the modulation. Without it, just sounds always the same, and the rest is just like the emotion, like, or when you listen and you want something more natural sounding, or like exactly how you like it. But sure, the fast, snappy things you cannot do with a hand.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So okay, well, I mean, you said when the patch is there and there's modulation in there, it sounds the same. But I mean, it's very, with a simple patch you can have something which is never the same for a million years. You know what I mean? But you are talking about actual big movements in the modulation, like which have a certain arc, a tension arc, or something.
Genau, like just a filter.
Human expression, basically. You add the human expression. Yeah.
Like opening up the decay and the cutoff or whatever, and for a little bit of interesting happenings, you do like I do self-generated stuff, just to be surprised sometimes, or have like just something random happening. No? Sometimes like a sample and hold opens up or generates an envelope, and this goes back into the math, where then it's changing the attack time or something, like just a little bit of craziness to be surprised sometimes.
Unpredictability, yeah. And stuff you can react on yourself. Oh, there's a question from our lovely Lady Starlight.
Hey, Colleen.
The mixing module I'm using right now is the Happy Nerding 3 VCA, just as a VCA, and if you put the switches down, you have it summed out. And in the end of the chain, I have the Befaco STMX. I was surprised about the quality because, I was just surprised because it was they also do like this, DIY kits and stuff. And and as I say, I was surprised about it. It has 4 stereo inputs with just a volume control and 1 aux. So, and this on 6 HP, it's pretty cool. If I had a little bit more space or a skiff, and I'm thinking about to buy a skiff for the live situation to get a little bit of more, utilities, then I would get something like the Happy Nerding Pan Mix or the Topo Brillo Stereo Mix, because you just have you have the panning control, CV controlled, or you have the volume CV controlled. You can have a aux send for effects, and in the Topo Brillo you even have 4 VCAs in it. So if I had more space, I would get something like that.
So
but I don't have right now.
The way you work now is, so basically your drum machines are 1 stereo signal. I'm just wondering how much of it can you still do? You multi-track, or is your modular just ends up as a stereo feed?
It ends up as a stereo thing.
Take it or leave it kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I do it every track I do. If I do it like this, is like directly a training for the live, because I have to really listen to what is sounding good, and because it just stays then stereo. I have a compressor in the end with a sidechain in. And I'm waiting for a module to arrive, which is like a 5-band EQ and on 4 HP stereo, this WMD Scalpel. And I think this will bring everything a little bit up, because it would be so cool to have just the Octatrack and maybe the rhythm sometimes and the modular system, like as a minimal setup, but it has to really sound good, to not use an external mixer anymore.
Yeah. So you have to have some way to keep the dynamics under control, I guess, on the modular.
And
that's the thing, I mean, the thing is, that's one thing you have to always kind of compete with. If you would, I mean, now the situation is different, but if you would show up with a live setup with, no treatment in some kind of master chain, or if your stuff is just fed into small mixer or even a modular mixer, there's just no way you're going to be as loud and as compressed or as slick as a DJ who's playing before you or after you. There's always way more dynamics to with a lot more headroom. You have to take more headroom as well, because you might blow up the system if you don't, so it's hard to kind of get the same energy level sound wise. I mean, I'm not talking about music, but just in terms of sound, to compete with people who play finished master tracks, Yeah. So
I think it also depends a little bit on the sound system. If you have a sound system which is always running like on max, or shortly before you hit a limiter, then it's maybe something different. When you have like an open live, when you have more, when you go like on some points a little bit louder, when you have this headroom. But if you have a system which is like closed,
if you are basically just manipulating level on a DJ mixer, you can play with that range. You can play with the and if there's a trusty relationship between yourself and the sound engineer, you can say, okay, sometimes I'm gonna push it a little bit, but don't worry, I'm gonna take it down again. It's just an expression thing. And if that relationship is good, then and they trust you, you can actually play with the dynamics of the sound before you fuck it up or they turn you down. But with a modular, there's a way more unpredictability in there. When you modulate something on one system, it might sound like there's nothing's happening, and on the other system, it might sound like the whole everything is changing very rapidly, or the peaks are coming out in a different way, or just interpreted different by the sound system, I guess.
So doesn't sound like at home.
No, I mean, that's also something which I realized like last weekend, when I prepared like this ambient set. When you listen to this music on a big system, it sounds so much different, also like a small kick drum in the studio suddenly has like a huge impact, like a slap in the face. And these levels, to manage these levels live, I think it's also quite difficult to change between a normal level sound system and then like 100 dB in a club. It's like totally different when you have the huge subs and everything. I mean, you have a big sub in your studio, but I mean, like really huge monitorings and stuff like this.
Yeah, and then you have the sound check and you think like, somehow I think there's too much bass, and then the guy says like, yeah, the people are gonna absorb that, and then you play and you still think, isn't that too much bass? It is. You have to, I don't know, like me, when I get unsure and it brings me out of focus, I just put my headphones on because I trust on these headphones. Sometimes I wear them at home, and then I'm sure, okay, I'm fine, I can just continue. It can make you feel really unsure.
But that's also the challenge and the charm, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if it's not dangerous and if it's not something that is putting you on the spot, it could end up being very boring. So
keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're planning doing more live stuff, Jon, or did you get inspired by the?
Oh, I'm absolutely would be up for doing something again at some point.
Solo or in collaboration form?
Well,
or any...
I mean, I should be very clear and say I would be up for it. I'm definitely not about to reveal the live set that I've been working on for the last few months or something like that. I think I had a lot of fun, and I would consider doing something like that. For me, it would be just a matter of translating what it is in the studio to live. I mean, Mike was talking about building out a live set from what he had made, and also for me, because all of it is coming from so far mostly from the computer in the box, I'd have to come up with a way to do that if it was just a controller or something like that, or maybe I would want to incorporate some gear. So there's some things that I would want to consider before I would
translating the stuff you have into MIDI information and then sending it to a synth or something.
Yeah, and I would like to have some potential in there to improvise. So how would I go about doing that in a way that was very natural? I also play saxophone, and there's an element of that I would consider bringing. I've even played that over DJ sets at some point. But also
saxophone.
What I use MIDI, like a MIDI saxophone to control, synthesizer or something like that. And also
like the Soma pipe.
Jako, you I'm sure at Schneider's Lab already have
outlets just have the Soma pipe.
all kinds of things that I haven't even looked into yet. But yeah, there's a lot out there. I have looked into some things, but it's something that I would consider doing down the line. But Joachim, you also mentioned like saxophone, and
I remember MIDI saxophone reminds me there was this I think in the 90s Akai made this
there's some stuff.
EWI, the thing.
Yeah. That's one of them, and then there's like a wireless version as well. But I was going to say, even saxophone, like the analog saxophone, the original instrument itself in dance music is something that I think whenever I say it, people always have a reaction of like, what would that be like? Because I'm going to be.
I'm gonna have your hair sort of blowing in one of these blowers, and
I've got a fan. I've got a white shirt. It's got the first couple buttons unbuttoned. No. But it's really a matter of restraint, because I would be the first to say that saxophone on any dance track is just a step away from absolute ruination, to be honest. But it's a matter of restraint.
Right.
And choosing.
Or would you treat it after miking, or how would you? Or are you?
Well, whenever I would play it, also like even live in the past or something, I would just have effects through it, like a mic on it, and then just effects like a reverb and delay, or even just one or the other, and that's it. But again, playing as little as possible. And just very selective, and then people think, I'm not. That sounds bad. You play just a little bit of it, and they're like, what was that sound? And it's got a very powerful kind of sonic signature that punches through everything in a mix, and that's why it's also could be really annoying if it's played too much. So just a little bit, and then people are like, wow, that's really powerful, and they want more of it, and they never thought they would. And it's like, no, I'm not going to play it that much. That's better to keep people wanting more than wanting less.
True. That's a really good strategy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway.
So both Jako and Mike, you are talking about recreating stuff which is based on music you have released or are prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that something you think you should do? Like, should it represent something people know, or because I've kind of sort of left that idea behind a little bit. I'm just just improvise and see what happens. Something that is when you do it a few times becomes a kind of signature sound or something. People recognize.
You have a lot of freedom there.
Yeah, it can become something that people can kind of recognize the style of, but not necessarily the tunes or the melodies, or you know what I mean?
What
is that thought? What's the thought behind recreating something that is basically? That's the question. That's my question.
Bitte anfangen? Bitte sehr.
My idea is not like to really recreate one-on-one like what I did before. So I use, for example, like MIDI melodies, chords and stuff. And I want to have this like this recognizable part, For example, you hear, that's this track from this EP, one of my favorites, but then it sounds different because you add another hi-hat, you add another bass line, or you mix these parts like an extended DJ set, more or less, for me, So mixing like parts from tracks I already released, samples and stuff like this, with like stuff I can create live on top, having like a bass synthesizer, like the SH101, for example, is one of these synthesizers which is so often used in these live sets, I think, because it covers like such a wide range of sound and is also like easily usable or programmable on stage. And I mean, what I told you is like that I also use the peak quite a lot during the process or the recording when we did the album with Oli. Also, my other album was done a lot with the peak, and I can save these sounds I used and then manipulate them like in a different way, or make the arrangement different, but have like some kind of like parts what you can recognize from the original,
Yeah, I think I was gonna put that in the screen too. Robin, our friend Robin Sub,
Hi, Robin.
He comments, it's like remixing your album live on stage.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
That's the
For me, it's a little bit like the extension of the DJ set, you know. So having your performing the music you created live and having all the parts like separated, and then choose like, okay, I mix maybe this bass line with this chord or something like this. So it depends, of course, tonality. It's a bit, I think it's the next level from DJing for me, I think.
Yeah, there's more pieces to make the puzzle with, basically.
Yeah.
Just instead of having 3 or 4 sources, you can have an basically infinite amount of sources and make choices in different times of the process. So it sounds like a really flexible way of doing it, especially also if you also bring hardware and you get some of the sounds sounding separate from
the noodler. You have the noodler, right?
Yeah, but this was something what I mean, I didn't use it in the end for the ambient.
What's the noodler?
It's a small sequencer.
Okay.
I think we talked about it last time. It's here. It's
yeah.
So this would be something nice for, you can connect like four different instruments, and you have a drone pad part and like 2 motive parts, which is basically like arpeggios or short sequences. And you can set like a key and then just jam with it. It's like more or less a little bit random melodies, but it's fun. You cannot really program like patterns or anything like this, so you start like every time you start from scratch.
That's cool.
Has working in this way on translating your own music to kind of a live show given you any different windows into your own, into yourself or your own ideas, where you're like, oh, I never thought of interpreting this idea that way, and you ended up producing a new track from something that you came across while trying to make this process work?
I mean, this happens all the time. Every time, you during this process also of like preparing samples, you hear, like, for example, like a loop of something which you never hear alone, and then you get a new idea. Okay, then I could mix this with another percussion sound or anything else. And I mean that was also, or is something what I think as a DJ what is what the most fun is, like creating from existing material something new. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Word.
As I'm different. I wish I was that organized. And as I said before, I wish I had like mastered stems or something, because then it would make things easier. But now I got like some tracks which are going to be released, which came from live sets. I just prepared live sets, played them, and then people were requesting like, what's the track ID, or like, what was that track around that minute? And then I just try to recreate that a little bit with the idea I had before, and you have to play it a lot of times through to get back to it, but it works. Like, I get ideas from the live sets.
Yeah, so basically you, by performing them out, the final form of the track that you eventually record as a recording has already been developed by playing them out, and it makes sense. Cheers. I used to do that too. I mean, makes sense to instead of just playing like an early recording of something in a DJ set, it makes more sense to play it live, and so you can actually feel how the track sort of functions, or how the piece of music works
How
with an
long you
audience.
can play with it, and then
Exactly. It's
crystallize out what is good and what not.
And also how long certain things could last, and because sometimes in the studio you get the timing wrong, of things. You make things too long or too short because you think makes sense at the moment, but when you play it out, it could be something, some part that it just sounds boring because you were kind of attached to the idea that went on there too much in the studio, and you made it longer because you were proud of it, and then it seems to completely go over everybody's head when you play it out. So it's good to kind of find how a track works by performing it first a few times, definitely. So it's pretty much the other way around. So Mike takes stuff on the road, which has already been recorded, and you do it the other way around. Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Animal Factory amplification is showing up.
It's a nice guy. It's where I got the pedal from.
Nice. Okay.
And so for who is that question? How do you use distortion as dynamics process in the studio and live? Du hast doch, you have the mic, multiband thing I saw in the electronic beats. What is it again? This the multiband compressor thing. Genau.
I don't use it so much in the studio. The drama. I mean, distortion as dynamic processors is like, I use distortion quite a lot in the studio, like while recording also here. I mean, the Charisma. I got this from Jochen, the Charisma. You still have it in the studio?
I still do, yeah.
Do you use it a lot?
Not recently, but it's one of these things that you can just quickly punch in and out, see if it does anything. If it doesn't, you just switch it off again. If it does, and you find a setting which is nice, which is the range is pretty much from very, very subtle saturation to full-blown distortion. But I mean, it's one of these things you can just go to and very quickly find out, does it do anything? And if it doesn't, I just leave it alone. Yeah.
Because I have it in my drum channels in the inserts on the mixer, like always on, for example.
Always on.
It's always on. And
sharing
I love it. I love it for kick drums because it can go from, as I said, like really subtle to like super heavy compression, and but for dynamics, I wouldn't use like the distortion as a dynamic tool. I mean, it can be like a compressor, but I have this 500 box, which I also bought for the live set, which is has two modules. It's the Elysia character, which is nice distortion tool, and then as the end of the chain is the Elysia, how is it called? Expressor, which is quite nice compressor, which is really nice. And also I tried it now for the live set, and it works quite well. And I mean, there's no fixed way, I think, to use compression. I
think you can use it for everything, on everything, just depending on like how, like as I said before, I had once in a setup when I started to be bored of the rhythm sound, because it was just dead somehow. It was on every record on, was like Henning Bermer, I think 2017, it was on every dance record, he said. Anyway, I used a bit crush for hi-hats and stuff, and then another distortion for the mids, and then like something really mono for the bass, mono with compression. And then on the synthesizer to just give a little bit of like ear candy with EQ and saturation. Also I think you can use distortion on everything, just
yeah, and in every part of the process as well, you know. I mean, you can, I mean, there's so many ways to get distortion. You can basically get it by just overdriving some part of the mixer, anywhere, yeah, or the input stage of something, you know. I usually
or as a main part of a track.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can do it in post, you know, or have some distortion or compression on a bus, like Mike said. But yeah, I mean, there's so many types of distortion too. Like overdriving is one way, but going all the other way around, like having signal sort of very, very low, so you get all the noise with from the signal path and just blow that up to big proportions is in a way also distortion, you know, to get like a gritty and noisy sort of layer into your sounds by just having your, you know, mess with the levels in your chain. Can be in a tactic. Sometimes that works.
I mean, we use this tactics quite a lot with like having the outputs from the drum machine quite low, and then putting up the gain, also all the noise which comes with this, and then put it into a compressor, and you get this like pumping like only from the kick drum.
Yeah,
like,
you can start hearing all the artifacts, like you can hear the internal clock of the machine running and shit like that, you know. Yes, you know, all kinds of interference shows up when you do that. It's a nice technique. But I mean, yeah, so there's so many ways to fuck up your sound and get more character into it. I pretty much use things like this in every part of the chain, you know. It can be at the stage where I'm just you know, getting a sound together on a modular or on a synth. There could be distortion involved there, or further down the line when it's already been recorded and it's just an after treatment kind of thing. So yeah, many ways. I
mean, maybe it can make it a little bit dynamic if it's like with something like a reverb, or like this with this one pedal with a spring reverb and a distortion in it, and then it's like it's pushing it away, but when it comes back it has like a little bit of reverb, so it's like I think it's like this wie heißt das nochmal, Vermona Filterlandsit. There's like a spring reverb in it and a distortion, and that sounds dynamic. I mean, it's like just, it's not stereo or anything, but it has like movement in it, and it pushes everything back and then comes back with a little bit of air. Yeah.
Jon Hester has to comment on the distortion thing too, because it was a question to all.
Okay. Well, I use distortion. I use distortion a little bit. I definitely use maybe a little bit of distortion, and then saturation, a combination of saturation and compression on things. And sometimes I'll play around where I'll have, you know, saturation and a tiny bit of distortion, some compression, and then maybe some other saturation, a different kind of compression, just because I want it to sound like that, and I'll just go for it. And then how does that sound? And record it and then do that again if the sound merits it, you know. Because maybe also like some similar instances when I'll make something come together. And I'll just have this output of the soft synth thing that I've kind of built together, comes out at a very low level, and then I'll run it through all this stuff. So yeah, you start to hear some more strange things and artifacts in there, and just run it through a bunch of stuff. And what sounds good and hits correctly pleases the ears and is working, then I'll go with it. Yeah, there's no one fixed way.
I guess it's like using any other tool or any other technique in the studio. You just try it and see how it works, if it works for you or not. You know, does it do anything that I like, and can I get a sound out of it that I like? And if not, you ditch the idea again and move on to the next experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to two people. Before this chat, I've actually been talking now for the whole day. We've set up a masterclass as one of the highest tiers in our Patreon, and people can join that. And then I basically do this with, instead of guests and live, I do it with people who want to learn more about production. So anyway, but the question is, there's a lot of people also on our Discord server asking, should I do this or should I do that? How should I use my distortion? What is the best reverb? Kind of.
Shall I start with a modular? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, you know, it's basically just whatever the hell you you want. You know, it's like
well,
there are no rules. It's just if it sounds nice, it sounds nice. If it sounds shit, it's ditch the idea. You know.
Yeah.
It's just the road or the process of discovery. I think that is the most important thing when you're making music. You know, just fuck around and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what works the best.
Yeah, you find it out by trying it.
And I would, to anyone listening, asking these kinds of questions, it's also like, well, what do you want to say? What's your idea that you want to put forward? Maybe you want to make something that's really noisy and gritty and in your face, and that's your vision, and then go for it and use the distortion you want. And Marcus Sukkot, there's no wrong or right, it's techno. What key is this in again? No, but
well, it's true for techno, but it's true for all music, you know.
Yeah. And some of the greatest pieces of music have been made by trying to break the rules, you know. So yeah,
well, not even trying to, but just arriving at some point and doing some stuff that is that nobody ever did before, or that is maybe even a stupid mistake, wrong connection, or a wrong note somewhere. And
absolutely,
like,
there was
stick with this, you know.
There was a couple things on that. With the wrong note, actually, there was this legendary Herbie Hancock story where he was playing piano with Miles Davis on stage, and he was playing chords, and he hit a wrong note, and it was apparently to him it sounded really bad. He's like, "Oh, I've made this terrible mistake," and everybody heard it. And then Miles stopped playing for a second, and then he played some other notes that, as he put it, made his mistake, his chord sound right. So it just recontextualized it, and so that was music, live improvisation, recontextualizing music. So yeah, just with a different vision, or someone introduces an element that might seem strange, and then there's a way to kind of find a new path forward from that moment if you're willing to take the leap. But yeah, I'd say anybody listening, it's like, yeah, do what you make your own sound. And somebody else in the chat or the comments was saying something like, should you listen to a lot of techno, or you should listen to no techno if you're trying to produce it? Again, I think you listen to whatever you personally want and find your own way and make the music that you want to make that comes naturally from you. So yeah, it's like, go for it. Go for it.
Absolutely. Do it.
Yeah. I think copying in the beginning makes a little bit of sense. Like having something you really love and you want to maybe get just to learn how to do these sounds.
Sure.
And how to get to what you're aiming for. And then from that on, you definitely have to try out things. But just directly, like, ich weiß nicht, like, just trying out without knowing anything and then calling it experimental or something, or avant-garde, is not working, in my opinion.
Sure. Learn the framework at least for yourself, but then let your voice develop and everybody, I mean, would start out.
And you have to put in the hours. You have to put in the hours.
Yes.
It's not something you don't develop a signature sound in 2 weeks. It's something that grows over years and years. And
yes.
Well, I mean,
nights of not sleeping.
Yeah, the struggle.
nights of half sleeping in the studio. Like.
Which studio? I cannot afford a studio.
Yeah. At home, at the living room, on your computer, in a studio somewhere, working till you can barely stay awake anymore. Yeah, that's how it happens.
I saw another. Yeah. Oh, here we go. From Stefan Disario. I hope I don't butcher his name.
Just go fast to the toilet. I'm sorry, the mater is doing a... Come back in a sec.
See you in a bit.
Jon, take over.
Okay. So my workflow special tools I may use. Hello, Stephen. Thank you for the question. I mean, my workflow, as I've mentioned, I'm working kind of in the box. I'm using Ableton. So as far as generally speaking, my workflow first comes from an idea. A lot of times, I think the best music I've made actually is an idea that I already have in my head. Sometimes it's maybe one element of the production, or maybe it's even, I just hear a finished track that I want to make. I know that might sound wild, but so I'll go in and see, okay, this is how the kick drum sounds, this is how the lead sounds, this is how it sounds. Okay, let's get to work and go for that. So I start with a kick drum always for whatever reason. It's just what I'm gravitating towards. It's also kind of the melodic, the anchor for where the anchor for the other elements will sit. And then I usually add the drums. Yeah.
Interesting. Kick drum starting person. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's just always like, well, which kind of kick drum does this track have? I somehow feel that first, even if it's going to be a really melodic track, I already have a sense of, okay, this is the kind of, I want it to be a dry kick or something really big and boomy, but start from that. And then I'll build the percussion. I naturally gravitate towards percussion somehow. It's the easiest for me to kind of find my way with as I'm building a track. So generally speaking, I'll build that next. I'm a big fan of tom drums, so add those and get kind of a groove going and build up the rhythmic qualities of the track from there, and the hi-hats and everything. And then I'll work on the leads, and then I'll add the pads underneath that to support it. If I'm going to build something, that's typically a workflow for me, for example, to make something. And like I said, a lot of times actually I feel like I'm able to create something really quickly when I have this idea already in mind, and I already basically know what I want to get to, and I just throw myself at it and go for it, and what comes out happens. It's not like I'm a perfectionist where I say like, oh, I have to have this perfect. It's like, okay, I shoot myself out into space, and if I don't land on the moon, I'm somewhere in the stars where I've got the idea at least has gotten out of my head, and I'm listening to it playing. So in the best case scenario, of course, the days when I come in and just mess around with a bunch of stuff and I think this is not going as well as I hoped, and then start over or do something else. It's never just like a quick path all the time. But I hope that provides some insight on it.
Yeah, it's funny you say you start with a kick, because I find myself arriving at more interesting stuff when I don't even think about drums and start with sounds, you know?
Yeah. Some things I've made, when I really had a unique synth sound in mind, I'll have to go and work hard on that to get the tonality of it at least. Like I might go and build the synth, so to speak, or in the soft synth, build up something that I like and get there and have, okay, this sounds good. But then from that point, I'm going to set that aside and start building, for me, the track with the kick and the rhythm and things like that, so I know where to place it rhythmically with what else is going on. But I always gravitate towards making all the drums first.
Are you starting with the kick person too, Jako?
No, definitely not.
She's like, no way.
I think then there's not so much space left anymore. I think, I appreciate music which is based on a kick drum. I mean, I like clubbing as well, and if somebody spent a lot of hours on designing a kick drum, I appreciate that. But I'm just thinking about the last tracks I did. I tried to get synthesizer music. I want to make synthesizer music, like a lot of layers and things you can explore, even if you listen to it like already 25 times or something. Like if you buy music and it's music of someone else, and you always find like another layer you really enjoy, and you go deep. And then you can imagine a kick drum. You also could play it as a dance track. Or something, but it is also really just nice in its spectrum of frequencies as it is, and it can be rhythmical, it can be percussive or whatever, but doesn't have to be like rhythmical with drum sounds. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing against it. I mean, percussive tracks are rhythmical percussive tracks. I also listen to that. I enjoy a lot of noise music, which is sometimes just out of percussions maybe in the beginning, and then through distortions, as we said before, and then with like I'm talking just with noise in the background. What the hell? I'm talking.
No, I get it. No. And your music's very kind of has a lot of texture and layering to it that's
right now
together.
I mean
I
also
right
have
now.
tracks which are just drums or just a drum machine, and from that kind of uncreated something what sounds more like just drums, just dry drums, Like maybe drum machine music, but played with the effects internal and modulated so much that it doesn't sound like just a drum track. You see what I mean? Was wolltest du sagen?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Jon, do you work with sound, with your own sound banks? Do you have something like a how you say, bibliothek, sound
library?
Library, yeah.
Do you have your own sound library, or how do you do that?
I will oftentimes make something from soft synths where I'll just go in and start it from zero. Honestly, like I have, funnily enough, I sometimes will be making something and I was like, I like this, I should save this and use it again, and I'll save it, and sometimes I'll use it, and there's definitely equal, if not more, amount of times when I save it, I'm like, oh, what was that again? Oh, it was this folder there, and I have no idea. I just make a new one. So yeah, I sometimes I think I should really make a sound bike and have a library of these synths that I work so hard on, because it takes me a lot of effort sometimes to create them, and then later I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, what was that? Or it's not sounding the same. I don't remember it sounding like that, and I'll just make a different one or try something else. So I kind of do, and I try to use it sometimes, but I find myself oftentimes, especially on the synth side of things, just going in and trying to surprise myself with where I'm pulling the stuff from, because with software there's so many. The problem is there's too much to choose from.
Yeah,
it's
when
limited.
You get something.
Yeah.
So I kind of like. I also like that because, like I said, I mean, the drums for me come more naturally to just say, oh, I think I want to make a rhythm like this. Okay, boom, boom, boom. I've got something working already there. But the synths, some people, especially in the studio, who really are quite nerdy with their synths collection and knowledge, can really pull some fantastic stuff in a moment. Like, I want this sound out of that, and I'm going to make it do this, and now I've got it. It's more of a challenge to dig and find something and then make it sound the way I want every time, I'd have to say.
So, as you say, you work in the box, but do you have some? What are your input devices? Do you have a keyboard, or do you some controllers, or do you?
I'll have a keyboard. I'll have some really like basic MIDI keyboard where I'll play keys myself, and then just nudge things if I need to move something for some melodic elements.
And what about modulation of your synths? Do you do that on the screen, or do you have a controller? Because I always find it very hard to not have anything to.
No, I'll have like some tiny little controllers that I'll just MIDI map to and sure. Modulate things and do kind of automation passes. So there's filters and effects and things happening throughout the course. I'll just jam after I record something, do the basic arrangement take. I'll usually do one arrangement take, and I've learned that usually the first take is the best. I've tried many times and done multiple takes and gone back, but I feel like the first one is the most human.
I wish it was like that for me.
Mistakes and all, but also the other thing is like I can go to Ableton. I mean, I don't know, Jako, how are you just recording what you do and then that's the take and that's it, and you don't go back? Is it just a waveform when you're done? Right? I mean,
no. I record multi-track, or I just layer things. And then
you can go back and change something once you've done a take. You've got the multi-track, and if you have a long jam, you could sync with that later with the pieces.
Yeah, when I start recording, I'm not jamming and then press record and then I have like a piece I just cut out and that's it. I'm not like that. I'm jamming around, and when I think like, I want to keep that, then I start recording, and then the idea is already somewhere. I have to just remind it, and I have to record it then in the moment. So I can start with maybe the thing which is the most difficult to remind. So I just record, and then I do the rest on top. I listen to that. So I basically then jam with myself in the recording, put like layer per layer.
You overdub stuff. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And then it is a little bit easier I don't have to stay focused with all the parameters. I have the idea, and I can make then every part the best as I can.
Right. Yeah.
No, I do it now like this. It wasn't always like this, but yeah, this is how I do it now.
I do something kind of similar, but different, I guess. Where I say I don't think I just do the first take and it's perfect. No. But the first take is the best jumping off point, at least to build what I would call a final arrangement. And then, or it's not worth it for me to do multiple takes when I can just chop different parts and move them around. You know what I mean? So I think I'll do a first take. I'll get the idea sketched out, and generally speaking, it's in a good direction. And then I'll move stuff around as I need, and then I'll do live passes where I'll record, kind of overdub it with filters or effects or things like that on each channel. I'll go through and record stuff across each channel, so each channel has its life to it and isn't just like the same thing all the way across. But there's some
I do it too before I have to go to work or something, and I had a good idea. I also sketch, as you said, like I just record, keep the idea before I forget it. Yeah. And then I have to go to work. When I come back, I have to fast, then do something before it's gone. So I see what you mean.
Word.
Do you Sorry, go on.
And if I have a lot of time, I just record the layers and directly EQ this part before I start with the other one, because so like this is really organized and clean, and it makes it's really wie sagt man
everything in its place, like
sorry,
that everything has its place already.
And like productive. It's just like the most productive way, like recording a layer, making everything finished, and the next really like as you like it, and then the next. This is like a good feeling if you then finish and you feel like I'd like to continue this tomorrow, listen to it again, and then continue.
That's such an important thing, because I speak to a lot of people who always seem to get stuck somewhere. And, I always say, you have to basically create your ideal circumstances. If you know that you are a good performer of sort of layers in the track, you basically have to do that, the way Jako just explained. And if you're good at another way of getting things done quickly, then that should be your method, but it doesn't make sense to keep listening to something endlessly in a loop and then just wish it would be better. Some magic,
I never can finish tracks.
I mean, so just move quickly is probably a very important thing, getting something done. Because when you listen to something, if you spend days on something which only changes a few percent every working day, then you get bored of it, and you lose the energy and the excitement you had when you first laid down the first idea. So I think that's probably even more important than what instruments you choose to do it with. It's just
I would agree.
It's the way. If you can find a way to get shit done really quickly, get it out of the way, or at least get a lot of material recorded and commit yourself to it.
Before it gets lazy.
Fast,
Or if you keep working it starts to become something else than your original idea. I think it's best to get the burst of it.
It's exactly. Especially with software, tracks can, in theory, morph from one version into the other, and by the 10th incarnation, it's a completely different thing,
It's great to get the idea sketched and bam, get it out, and then you can always come back to it later with a clear head and then say, okay, now I've maybe fixed some technical aspect of it that you don't spend too much time getting too perfectionistic about the details. And for me anyway, that's what works. Get the idea raw out, and then you come back later and you try to get it something as good as possible in the moment, of course, but don't sweat the small stuff. Get it out there, come back days later or something, and then you can, with a clear head, maybe look at it in terms of cleaning something up or adding some little touches that you wanted to. But then you're closer to done. Done is better than perfect. Done is better.
I always
than
call
perfect.
those cleaning up jobs. I'm calling them admin jobs. It's like, okay, you've got something, and of course, there are some sonically problematic things going on, but who cares? I'll do. That's something you do with 9 in the morning with a coffee, and then just analyze it technically and see what you can improve. In your mixdown or whatever.
Yeah, and it's kind of a different part of your brain almost.
It is definitely a different. Yeah, it's a different mindset and a different. That's why I call it admin. Same goes for. You were asking before, or somebody asked before, if you have sound banks or something you work from. Mike was asking.
Yeah.
And I don't really. I do have sound banks, but I don't
use them.
No, very rarely. But it can sometimes be handy if you're looking for some kind of, I don't know, percussion sound or a snare drum or something. those things I made during an admin day, so I basically make sounds, just a sound making day, just connect a few pieces of gear up and just try to find the range of the possibilities in that patch, and then just record just drum sounds from it, and then I'm just leaving them on my computer. I know where to find them,
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just go back to that and use it in a situation where you are actually looking for something like it. But that can be handy, but it's not something I do while I'm creating music, so it's a separate job. When I'm creating music, I'm just getting the idea together very, very quickly. And that's why I like using with hardware, just record hardware. And it's basically take it or leave it, If it's it, I'll just keep recording until there's a moment where I think things sort of all fall into place. And when things click, that's then the sort of the recording that I go with. And I might do overdubs, or I might do sort of post things in the box, to kind of tidy it up. But as far as the actual idea, I usually commit to that very quickly, almost real time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some sort of own presets, but I think I just made them and I stored them just for the sake of learning. I have like a few of kick racks, or like dub something where there's like a filter, a delay, another filter, an EQ, and maybe another delay. I just made them for like to reach one certain sound, and it was like too much time I invested to just delete the project. So I just save it as a rack, but I never use it. I just
it's more fun to start something new. It's more fun usually. What about you, Mike? Do you have admin days?
Yeah. Actually, admin. So actually, because of the live stuff, and I was like going into my projects, and I also used like the analog rhythm quite a lot for drums, but I always somehow process like these sounds coming out of the machine and.
Du musst ein bisschen näher kommen.
Okay, sorry. So I always process the stuff in the computer. I just load.
Oh, Mike sounds like Kraftwerk now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, maybe my connection is not so good here.
No, it's back. You're back.
You're back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I load like these processed samples. They are EQ'd and they sound right. I loaded them back into the drum machine and created like drum kits for
kits.
Yeah. So I this is like stuff I have now set up in the rhythm for the live show.
Layers, are you layering then with this analog sounds, or are you just using it as a sampler then?
In the end, use it as a sampler, or I mean for the live stuff I use the noise and stuff like this, but I want to have like a kick drum which I know sounds right from a production, for example. I use a kick drum sample for on the rhythm, for example, but I don't have other. I mean, I have now sound libraries or like all the parts from my tracks, but when I produce like new music, I more or less start from scratch always.
Yeah, kits is a good idea though, because if you produce kits,
I'm not getting kits now.
Drum kits or percussion kits.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is when the thing I talked about, like doing an admin day, make like a little setup and create drums from it. They would always kind of fit together because they're made with the same patch and they have the same sort of basic qualities to the sound. So in fact, you're designing a kit when you do that, So the stuff that you kind of cut out of these settings, or these sort of recordings, they have a coherency to them already because they've been designed as a kit. That's quite a good way to get a nice sounding drum part going if you just use sounds from one kit.
I definitely, I was actually, Mike, when you asked that, I definitely we'll make some things in synths and then save some, lose track of others. But in terms of kits for percussion, I definitely built some things that I always have ready to go. So that's probably even one more reason why I'm faster at putting that type of aspect of the production together, because I have sounds that have already worked in place and even kind of have a basic EQ where I don't have to stress that much about fitting them in, but I know, okay, these are all different places I can start from percussion wise. Anyway.
So what are your go-to plugins then? Because if you basically do the same as we do, but in the box, what is the stuff you use? Is like for example, your favorite kit building machine?
Well, it varies. I mean, sometimes I'll use on reverb, I'll use the black hole, but for effects. But in terms of things that I build up stuff with, if you want to know about like compression or the kits themselves,
no, just the sound
sources themselves. Okay, sorry, I thought you were thinking like the whole chain.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's some sounds that are like some samples that I have too that I will manipulate, and they're I'll just find sample sources from all over recordings of percussion. I love a lot of like also organic percussion, and wherever I can find samples like this, and then manipulate it or bring it up to be a little bit more powerful. I think.
Okay, so it's found stuff rather than synthesized stuff.
Yeah, found stuff, and if there's some, there's also some samples, and I'll manipulate or edit things like that. I don't really do sampling from like any recorded music or something like that and try to flip that like in the old school hip hop way or something like that. But I'll have, if there's like some kicks or something like this, I'll layer two different kicks and then some other sound to make a texture or something like that, and then that becomes the kick drum. Or if I can synthesize a sound that will be like a sine wave that could be a part of a kick, I'll do that. But I mean, there's really no one fixed way for me of doing it, or I don't know.
No, you just sculpt until you find something. You stumble upon something you like.
Yeah.
I have a question, Jochen. What you have a modular system? I think you have a quite big modular system, right?
It's not massive. I mean, there's people who have. No, it's. I've got about. I don't know the amount, but it's I don't know.
But it's not small. Huh?
You know the
average.
The A100 box, the Doopfer box. I've got about I've got about 3.5 of them.
So what you use your modular synthesizer?
As part of the rest, like for sequencing, sound manipulation, sound
Which
source.
sequencer?
I've got a few simple ones like the Renees and the pressure points and circadian rhythms. I've got a trigger riot. I've got a.
You got quite a lot.
Yeah, it's just stuff too. It's mostly trigger based. I've got some older analog sequencers, like part of the System 100, with the stepless 12-step whatever thing, and
the one with the switches and
you can
the big one.
It's part of the System 100, so it's called the 101, I think. I don't know. It's the gray one. It's got 2 rows of 12 steps.
Yeah. Because I don't know how it's called, but I know which one you mean.
Yeah, and then you can trigger you can have a trigger input to decide when the steps progress, or you can have it just clocked by something constant, or so it's actually quite versatile. You can have it. You can have short loops, long loops. It doesn't do anything really complicated, but it's it's one of
as with unquantized, right?
It's unquantized, yeah. So it's
microtonal.
Yeah, exactly. There's never really on it, and it's old, so it's also a little bit unstable. But I like that, I like
that. It is cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I use the modular for anything really, for sound sources, we're manipulating stuff which is, I mean, like I have an ARP 2600 and a System 100, and they have the old school CV manipulation capabilities like an LFO and sample and hold and stuff like that. But the range of them is pretty limited, So if you get something like maths or some crazy complex, or what's the other one? The one I use quite a bit, the Control Forge, Rossum Electronic. What is it? Rossum? Yeah. It's basically a very Swiss Army knife CV controller thing. You can get anything out of it, and also
never used that.
Through different settings and stuff. Anyway, it's way more complex than whatever these old machines have to offer. So it's interesting to sometimes make the combination because they are compatible with them, and so I use the modular in that way as well. And I have certain things in sort of skiffs, smaller skiffs like this big. So I have like a few sequencer skiffs and a few effect skiffs, and this I can just take them around the studio to have to build setups with, because that's the way I work. I build a setup for each session or each
cool. Yeah, that's a cool thing about modular stuff. You can always configure it new.
Exactly. So I don't have to screw anything in and out. I just get if I need some extra sequencing capabilities on the table behind me, I just take the skiff with the sequencers, and just put it there. Nice. So it's a modular system, a portable.
Truly modular.
I don't have so much stuff, just like a few cases and some skiffs.
I just hate screwing stuff in and out, It's just, okay, this is a dedicated thing. It's got one function, and I just either leave it where it is, or I take it.
Yeah, if you think it runs proper through, you don't have to screw so much.
Yeah, and also, bigger systems tend to become walls of stuff, and therefore become like totally immobile, and stuff that you want to connect might end up far apart and make it messy with cables and shit. So keeping it in smaller sizes. With each unit basically has a function. It kind of makes it more manageable also in terms of cable management and functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, sequences are interesting for me. I'm thinking. I mean, I love the Octatrack, but I'm thinking about to get another sequencer just to have a little bit more. And there are like some newer ones and some like classical ones.
512 on the Vector is amazing. If you see that.
It is, yeah. It's big.
No, it's not that big. Yeah, it's about.
But as a main sequencer, or just like a small sequencer to do like small sequences, because like the Octatrack is like something you can run everything on it.
Yeah.
Or like the Cyclone, for example.
Yeah, I don't need like a big studio thing like that, I guess, because I don't have so much gear to run. I don't have like big analog vintage synthesizers which have to be controlled from the center of the studio or something. I just have everything in front of me. So I think I want to have like a little bit.
There are so many approaches to sequencing. You can get stuff which basically does all kinds of random or probabilistic stuff, or you can have like the simple old school, rows of buttons or knobs. So it depends on what your approach is. Do you want a sequencer to give you?
I think I want to get my sequences more complex, and I'm already on the limit of the Octatrack, which is basically already pretty complex if you use all the trick conditions, all the LFOs. But I want more, and that's why I want to mix sometimes sequences and just make longer, interesting sequences. I think that's what I want. There are a few new ones. There is, I think a lot of people are using this Hermod thing, the Squab, to play melodies in and just store them. And there is something like the Bloom of Qubit, which is more like, they call it fractal sequencer. And it's basically just algorithmic based. And I think something like that could be a little bit interesting, just to have some like tiny little, you don't really have to think, you can quantize it afterwards. And it just gives a little bit of extra what you can mix in depending on your patch or something. but I'm not sure yet.
So much choice out there. It's great.
Yeah.
But if you want something that is a combination of like planned sequences, like really sort of entering notes manually, and functions that kind of mess that up and do all kinds of weird shit, then the 512 is probably a good one. And you can have Circlone is a good one, but it's big and expensive. It's not really efficient in terms of size. I guess in your situation.
Yeah.
Eloquencer is good too.
Yeah.
I don't know. So many.
But
so many
yeah, there are. Yes.
Maybe the people in the comments can give you a hint.
Who can give me a hint? Or a sequencer. Who can give me a sequencer?
Euclidean sequences are sweet.
Sure, definitely. Uster can be pretty romantic, I think. Yeah.
What's that?
It's like the thing of Frap Tools, which has like four sequences in one. And you can go within the sequence, like backwards, forwards, and make it shorter and stuff. It's just a pretty chic way of sequencing, like arpeggiator vibes. Subharmonikon, yeah. Yeah. Melodizer, yeah. Stimmt. And then there is this the smaller melodizer of Frequency Central. They also have like a really small version. Stimmt, that's a good idea. Should try that out.
Thank you, everyone.
Shakman is really good for rhythmical things, especially polyrhythmic things. Oh, this one I don't know.
Lots of stuff coming from
the chat
very
is
gay,
on fire. Sequencers galore.
What about you, Mike? Sequencers, because you run several things on their own clocks, right? Like you sequence.
Yeah, I mean, I sequence my drums in the drum machine usually, and I have Ableton as master clock and also as main sequencer, so everything goes normally into Ableton. So I have also a Circlone hooked up here, which goes into Ableton and from here to everywhere. And then I have this GRP, you can see it here in the back. It has like 3 rows, but it's more like a, like a
Grandpa
simple, it's like a really simple sequencer, and then the rest.
But they do quality stuff. I'm really into their vocoder. They have this GRP vocoder that sounds so good. But
never tried the vocoder, But
I just saw it on Super Boost or something.
You see, there's the hole. There usually is the GRPA2 inside, which is the mono synth.
And sometimes simple is all you need,
Yeah. Sure, especially, I mean, with the repetitive techno music. I mean, what unit? No, but I mean, I also sometimes just play the stuff on the keyboard. When I play pads, I usually play the pads on the keyboards and do not write them in a sequencer.
Did you actually learn a classical instrument? All of you?
Clarinet and saxophone.
Oh, yeah, you said that. And you?
And I played bass guitar for a little while.
Me neither. I just, a few years ago, I thought like, fuck, I have to learn that. Everybody's able to speak about like notes, scales and stuff. And then I started to learn, to take lessons. But yeah, after a while, I just stopped and I thought I can do it myself. Like, reading the manual teaches you how to make electronic music.
Yeah, I think it's not.
I would love to, but it's something I just don't have.
Improvising would be nice, like with the keys.
Yeah, I did some piano lessons with Hussein from Cassegrain, and actually we had to stop because of the COVID. But I started also before to read like about like the basics of how music is working. Yeah, like how to build a chord, what are the notes, and like really the basic things. And then from there, you can just go on, and there are some nice books. There's so many stuff also in the internet and tutorials, and you can learn the basics quite easily, and if you want to get deeper, I wanted to do this piano lessons and still want to do it, but at the moment it's a bit difficult.
Apps, maybe there are some great music theory apps. I think I downloaded once one where there were just little games and you have to copy whatever is the topic, and then like this you learn.
Great. We're nearing the 2 hours, people. I want to give the people in the comments a last chance to, or the people.
Music theory. Oh, that late already.
What key is this in again?
Maybe we should thank you for being here, people. Really nice. Jon, JakoJako, and Mike Rødhåd. I want to give you.
Thank you all, and thank you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to plug? Maybe Mike is working on his live set. So, any dates planned yet for that, or?
We do a show next week. It's not officially yet, so I cannot announce the venue, but here in Berlin. And we have the release of the album coming 20th of October.
Yeah, people should definitely keep an eye out for that, because I've had it, and you send it to me. It's a really cool, really nice album. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, album with Vril. Yes.
Yeah. And the next release with Colleen is also mastered already.
Nice.
So it's the number 6, and the next one is also mastered already. So I was I used the time.
It sounds like it. Yeah. If this thing that I told you before is happening in Berlin, I'll stop by. Maybe we can do something.
Yeah, sure.
We've been planning that for ages, but these times make it more difficult to travel, I guess. But
it's always a good excuse. I would love to meet you, but
What about you, Jako? You've got anything coming up you want to?
Yes, I also produce. It's also not official anything of it yet, but it's also mastered already. So stay tuned. Now I got like a few compilation tracks on cool labels and working on a solo EP, and stopped now taking live shows because I still got requests, like also seated concert things. But I just I had to somehow say no. I'm learning right now to say no. Because since my studio setup is my live setup and I use everything to the limits, I cannot do both, make music and perform. So I focus now on making music and maybe DJ a little bit. And when this is done, I can prepare a new live set, and I'm back.
Makes sense. Sounds great.
Nice.
And Jon?
Shout
outs, plugs.
Well, I have part 1 of my debut album. It's coming out on Friday. So coming right up on Records. That's called Converge Part 1. So out this Friday the 25th on Records.
Awesome.
There's a forthcoming remix that I can't announce just yet. There'll be more news perhaps for me for music coming out later this year. Then I've got a podcast for Odd Even that will be out in October, and one for radio drama from Vince Watson in November. And I just put up a new mix on my own SoundCloud page. If you want to hear some mix session from me, you can go check that out. So that's what I got going on.
Everybody check it out. That's cool. I think I want to plug the thing that I'm going to do in the weekend of the 23rd and 24th of October. The 23rd, I'll be playing with our good friend Surgeon as multiples in the south of Holland. It's a seated show. It's an electronic improvisation show. We'll see where it ends up. It's going to be a surprise for us as well, but it should be fun. And then the next day, we are doing this 2 shows in Paradiso as part of the official ADE program, Stoor Live show, which were unfortunately for people who want to go there, it's already sold out. It's again seated, and there's going to be 2 shows, one in the afternoon with I'll be jamming there with our sweet Lady Starlight and Surgeon, and the second show is going to be with Colin Benders and Steve Rachmat. So again, fully organized live jam. So we'll see what happens. Really looking forward to that. So
how you organize your keys? Like, are you just listening and then choosing the notes, or are you like talking? Are you in A minor or?
No, the thing is, we've talked about this before, but if you we use headphones to listen to pre-listen. So if you have a sequencer going on, just spitting out notes, you can adjust them on the fly on headphones to kind of get in the area where this stuff is where it's already playing. But I mean, it's because in the studio that's actually quite doable, and because there's no bad acoustics going on and crazy volumes. But if you do that live in a room, I've noticed you can sometimes misjudge the pitch of something, or just a general vibe, of something. But it's just a question of just bring it in slowly and just go with it and just adjust it on the fly until it fits well,
I think that's my biggest fear of playing improvised and with other people, that you prepare an idea and then it's like, I can't do something else.
True, but I mean, it's as much a question of a matter of doing or leaving things than as much as it is doing things. So if something is, what the people are hearing or the audience is hearing is fine, there's no need to add something, So you can just even if you're preparing something on your headphones to go along with it, if the music or the flow or the moment doesn't really require you adding it to it, then you just don't do it, Wait for another moment to make something else. So anyway, but with drums, it's usually going straight in because that's quite kind of predictable how that's going to sound. But with melodies, of course, it requires a pre-listening thing. I don't think Tony does that though. I think he just throws it in and just goes with it. so probably fly. So that's another way of doing it too. But
or just using one note, each one note.
It's just whatever sounds good. That's the fun of the improvisation way of doing it. Hope to see you there. And I want to encourage everybody to have a look at our Discord server. The link should be in the description of the video. Oh, there we go. It's in the comments now too. It's our nice growing community with music makers, and it's becoming a really fun hangout. Everybody's invited, and you too, of course, Mike and Jon and Jako. And the other thing is we have a Patreon. If you're interested in seeing things more behind the scenes or getting sound packs and stuff like that, it's something we do as well. Hopefully see you next time. So thanks again, guys, people, lovely people.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
It was great hanging out.
Good to hang out.
See you later.
Cheersy.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
That's a little weird.
Ciao.
Cheersy.